Well, welcome back to DID After Hours. I'm in my room right now. As you can see, there's nobody here but me. That's right, me. Got a delightful treat. Yes, a delightful treat. A Twinkie. That's right. Good old Twinkie. Twinkie. Yeah. Yeah. Twinkie. Yeah. 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 Twinkie. But enough with the Twinkie. Now I'm all alone in this great room. Manny's gay, of course. He's really gay. But the person who's really gay is Danny. Danny, you should have been here. You're missing out. You are missing out. But it's okay, you're gay. What can I say? You're the gayest dude that I know. You're gayer than gay. I'm sorry to say. But anyway. Feeling kind of lonely. Feeling really lonely right now. I got my Twinkie. Good old Twinkie. Yeah. Well, we'll see what other shenanigans will go on in the night. Hopefully I can get some footage of Manny sleeping. Who knows what's gonna happen to him? Who knows? Do 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 do.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the 8th lesson on DOA. I think it's safe to say, since you made it this far, we're kind of hitting the intermediate part of DOA training. So of course we have several lessons before we hit the high level part, but until then, let's proceed to where we left off, the stun system. In my previous lesson, I showed you what a stun was and how they worked. I gave you a couple of tips on how to use them and how to avoid them. But since the stun system in DOA is so heavily used for mind games and mix-ups, I wanted to expand on it at this time. I kind of want to touch back on what I said on the last lesson, and that is how to use them successfully and how to avoid them. Now before I get started, I wanted to briefly talk about DOA's hit system. This is not to get confused with the hit levels in DOA. This is completely different. The hit system consists of normal hit, counter hit, and high counter hit. Normal hit usually doesn't grant you anything special unless the move has special properties. Counter hit almost always gives you a stun with the exception of the jab, and of course it gives you a little extra damage. On high counter hit, it's 100% guaranteed you're going to get some kind of stun unless it knocks you down. Even a jab will stun you, and it'll give you extra damage. With that being said, the easiest way to see counter hits and high counter hits is by going into training mode and switching the counter option. Switching it from normal to counter or from normal to high counter. This way you can see and understand what I'm talking about when you hit somebody on a counter hit or high counter hit. This changes DOA's triangle system. So although your attacks are seen in counter hit and high counter hit, your throws will now be seen on counter throw and high counter throw. And your offensive holds will also be seen in counter offensive hold or high counter offensive hold. So now that you're all set up and you switch your counter option on in the training menu, this is when we can get really into the stun system. When you hit somebody and you cause the stun, you have the option to follow up. However, sometimes your opponent tries to hold a little early without even knowing what your next move is. This can give you some problems. So this is when you decide to use stuns. They cause your opponent to wait a small fraction of a second before they can actually hold. This makes it easier for you to see when they're actually holding or if they're going to hold at all. Stuns that usually cause this are like down kicks, down back punch. Some characters have down forward kick, and some mid punch attacks, they make them sit down. These sit down stuns force them to wait just a little bit for you to see what they're going to actually do. It makes it easier to follow up with their next attack. Another option to use once you get your counter hit stun is to extend the stun with the jab. The jab tends to be the fastest move in the game for most characters, and it tends to recover the fastest compared to all the other attacks. This makes it easier to see if your opponent holds early, and even if they do, your recovery is so short that you'll still be able to punish them with a throw. I highly recommend using these kinds of stuns compared to any other stuns. It just makes it that much easier to read your opponent. Even if they're mashing their buttons, the stuns sometimes last so long so it makes it easier for you to decide what you want to do next. Now let's touch on escaping the stun system. First, you gotta know your options. Let's say you're not good at holding your opponent's attacks. Every time you try to hold, you end up getting hit or you end up getting thrown. So instead of all that, let's try to avoid trying to figure that out and just do the low hold. The reason I say use a low defensive hold is because it actually recovers faster than any of the other holds in the game. Also, it happens to crush high jabs, standing throws, and offensive holds. And on top of it all, if they do a low attack, you'll hold the low attack. One thing to keep in mind though is, if they low throw you, you will take a considerable larger amount of damage compared to just your regular standing throws. So be careful. The best way to use this technique is to immediately low hold after being stunned. They call this the just frame low hold. What this does is, it completely replaces the stun animation with the low hold animation. This also makes it hard for your attacker to continue their assault since you're crouching, and it makes it avoid some of their attacks. On top of it all, you might actually recover fast enough to block their next attack that could be unsafe. However, not every stun in the game can be replaced with a low hold. Some stuns, like mentioned earlier, cause you to sit down. These sit down stuns force you to wait before you can actually hold. So this can actually work against you, because this makes you see some of the animation, and then low holding will actually extend the stun. So that's when you have to use your second option, and that's to slow escape and mash buttons. DOA 4's slow escaping system has changed from previous versions, and in my opinion is a little overpowered, but it's a tactic that you must use when playing defense in DOA. What slow escaping does is shorten the stun animation that you're currently in. The easiest way to practice this is to get stunned and mash your buttons repeatedly until you get out of it. The more you do it, the faster it becomes to recover. This is similar to Virtual Fighter, where you have a little joystick and button come out to tell you to mash it. It is no different in DOA, with the only exception that you don't have something or a sign that says mash your buttons. My recommended way on doing this is to hold down your guard or free button while you rotate your D-pad or joystick. Trust me when I tell you that if you don't do this, there's a high chance that you'll hold on accident because you're pushing too many directions and pushing all the buttons at the same time. Trust me when I tell you that a lot of people have lost matches this way, so please try to practice this by holding down your guard or free button and then doing 360s on your D-pad or joystick. Now I know not all of you are used to slow escaping, but one thing you all should know is that slow escaping is good in just about every stun situation. However, just like the low hold, there are times where slow escaping becomes difficult. Usually this happens when you get hit by a jab or some kind of lift stun. These stuns cause you to stay in that stun animation longer than normal. Makes it difficult for you to slow escape, and usually they can follow up right afterwards. These attacks tend to be high, so that means that you can actually low hold to avoid them. However, you have to be careful, because if you're expecting that kind of attack and you end up getting sit down instead, it can actually work against you. This is when you have to figure out what kind of defense you need to use for each particular stun. It's not always going to be easy, so always practice these situations a lot with your friends or even in training mode. Well, that's probably the best way I can explain it without you actually experiencing it. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please post them up and I'll do my best to answer them. Remember, try to figure out what stuns work best for you and practice your just frame low hold and your slow escaping, because on the next lesson, I'm going to talk about launching your opponents in the air to do combos after a good stun and the benefits of the normal hit, counter hit, and high counter hit situations. Until then, this is Master speaking. I'll catch you all next time.